Say 30-ish.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Union. It's been a couple weeks since we've filmed the show, with all of us having real jobs and that pay the bills, and the Union being the hobby that it is. We've been away for a couple weeks. So welcome to episode 32. At least I think it's episode 32. And we're real lucky today because we get Everett Park all the way from Georgia coming on tonight and talk to us about NuCanoe, which if you're following our social media, you've seen some of the videos that Dave has done in the last month or so with regards to his NuCanoe and how he uses it to hunt and stuff. So we thought it'd be a great opportunity to bring Everett on and have a chat. So I'll introduce Everett in a sec. As you can see, that beautiful man Phil is not going to be with us tonight. He's out protecting the masses, but we still have Ryan down in Nova Scotia that's joining us tonight, Mark, who just moved closer to the nation's capital, and Dave up in Kincardine. And really, this is Dave's baby that he's brought on Everett, and because NuCanoe is something that Dave uses a ton. So thanks, Dave, for putting in the legwork and getting Everett on. Without any further ado, Mr. Everett Park, who's the National Pro Staff Director for NuCanoe, which is quite an impressive title. And I don't think I've ever met a National Pro Staff Manager before, so this is pretty cool. So he's coming to us all the way from Georgia. Super busy, lots of things happening with NuCanoe right now. And if you are NuCanoe followers, you're probably watching the Facebook Live video that's going on right now. So Everett, thank you so much for coming on. I know you're super busy, and to take some time out of your evening and away from your family to come sit down with us. We really appreciate it. So thank you so much for coming on, buddy.
I'm glad to be on, man. I know I've said this to you guys off camera, but I'm just going to remind you, for some reason, my earbuds cut out on you guys, get my attention. And I'll put the audio on the iPad or something like that on podcast, but I am notorious for butchering them in some way. So if we have some technological malfunctions, just it's par for the course when you invite me on. Unfortunately, I got a gremlin around my house or something.
Yeah, awesome. No, it's all good, buddy. We'll do some crazy interpretive dance or something to get your attention when time comes. So Everett, I guess I really wanted to start off with the fact that you're the National Pro Staff Director, and within that title, I can guess exactly what it is that you do, and that's making sure that you pick the right people to be ambassadors for the brand. But your data, like, what is on your list of tasks when you got hired? What was the number one thing that NuCanoe really wanted you, like, what got you hired, and why did they say, listen, this is the thing we need to get, that you need to get done for us before anything?
It's a good question, man. I don't get asked that question as often as you would think. Actually, I was at ICAST, which is a large sport fishing convention that's in Orlando every year. Well, it's pre-COVID-19 anyway.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there with Blake. I was part of his pro staff or team, which was really small and, kind of limited and very inactive in a lot of ways. And I can't really remember, if he prompted it or if I did, but we had a really good down to earth conversation about where he needed to get. And at the time, I had a pretty successful little clothing brand that me and a business partner were running, and he could see that we were pretty successful with social media and promotion and advertising, video and photo and that kind of thing. And so he just said, "Man, would you like to take over doing?" And I said, "I tell you what, I'd really like to do." And so that's when I kind of pitched him the idea of, kind of demoing what we had and restructuring it and let me kind of take control of it. And what's been really cool about it, to be honest with you, Damien, is I didn't even know the half of what I would end up, being part of, because being a small company, and being on the ground floor of it, you just never know what you're going to get to help with. So in addition to, the national pro staff, he has let me behind the curtain on everything. I mean, from advertising and marketing to product development. We've gotten to be good friends. We've spent time there in originally Bellingham. Now his wife are in Florida with the kids, and really get to see the whole operation from the inside out and help in every way possible, right down to the products themselves. So it's been an incredible ride, and the vision for the team and the national pro staff was to take what I could see as a really good small business feel to it, just one man, basically a one-man operation, and put it on the map. And that's what I wanted to do. And I think we've gotten there.
I think you're going to have to switch your earbuds, Everett, buddy. I can't, or is Everett's audio coming clear for everybody?
Let me just shut this off. Me? I'm gonna.
No, it's a little choppy and fuzzy and in and out.
It might be the internet connection.
It could be that too.
Yeah.
Lots. I can remember somebody in the past had those too, and then we had a problem with them as well.
Yeah.
So David, those are.
Guys, I'm gonna have to scream at you, but we can try this anyway.
Okay, that sounds to be good like that. Yeah, that sounds better.
Okay. I am working off of Verizon data, not an internet connection, because I live in the sticks. So we might have some lagging and stuff like that. I apologize for that. It's just, I told you, it's par for the course when you're dealing with me. So
yeah. And I'm the same way, buddy. I live out in the boonies as well, and I'm running off data off my phone as a hotspot. So I get you, Everett. That was really cool and you answered that question. And one thing that I haven't really pieced it together before, but a lot of the companies that we've had on the show in the past, while on the outside to people that don't know, they seem like they're this big, massive corporation, and because they're doing their advertising and their marketing right, and this whole, and they seem like this big giant company. But then you touched on it. It's just a small operation. You guys have, you may be hired for one job, but you've got 10 that you've got to look after, right? And that's just the nature of being in a smaller company, and everybody's got to do their part in order to make the wheels go around, right? So that family vibe that happens in these small operations, and your ability to collaborate on ideas, how does that work within that dynamic with NuCanoe?
I mean, I'll be totally transparent with you guys. We're still really small. I mean, even years after I began this journey with them, we're not a big company compared to most manufacturers. In fact, most kayak companies nowadays are owned by a big holding company, some parent organization with a lot of investors and a board and everything. We don't want any of that. Blake's always been honest with me that he doesn't want that kind of thing. He doesn't want anyone else to dictate his future. And so because of that, we're still, an operation that operates on a dozen employees or less for everything pretty much. Now our factory, that's a different group of people producing. But as far as the organization that is NuCanoe and sales and all the elements that go into what we do, we're still pretty small. So just kind of, we don't have an organizational chart, but if we did, Blake is obviously the president, and then I handle, kind of what's in my realm here. We have a couple folks that have come on this year to help with marketing, advertising, videos, photos, social media, which has been a huge help to me. And then, we've got the behind the scenes folks that handle our orders and bookkeeping and stuff like that. But like I said, it's still to this day, I am super involved in a lot. I don't want to say everything by any means, but Blake and I talk almost every day about what we got going on and about our plans for the future. And I feel super privileged to be part of that, even though it's still small. You like to tap into something a little bit bigger. I haven't really confessed this yet, but this isn't my full-time job. I have a full-time job in addition to this in the healthcare field. And I've done this for the last 4 or 5 years in addition to my full-time job. And I love it. I absolutely love it. So, but just kind of answer your question more directly. He might call me on a given day with kind of my input on, something that the factory could do differently on the product. He might call me to talk to me about dealer issues and what we can do to use the team or some boots on the ground. Maybe it's just because we have a customer who's gone on social media and, voiced their opinion or their question or something like that. And, we talk about almost every aspect of the business that you can think of, honestly.
That's awesome. Dave, you've been using the NuCanoe for a couple years and you're really, and Everett, I don't want to take away anything from what you do, but I know you're an avid fisherman and you use the product for that, but Dave has really stepped it up a notch with regards to using the product and using it for waterfowl hunting. And we've got videos out on our site specifically on how Dave's, Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about how you utilize the NuCanoe, which is not something that you guys really promote a ton of, Everett, because it's not something that it's not a world that you guys have been introduced to yet, is that waterfowl hunting world with the product. But Dave is, doing his bit. So Dave, how are you incorporating that same product that's used for fishing and for recreation and sightseeing and now turned it into a tool to get back for hunting birds?
When I first got my NuCanoe, I was actually using it as like an access way. It was getting me from whatever spot I could just get to with my truck, and I can get to all these spots that no one could get at the ducks, little river streams, any kind of thing like that all around. And then NuCanoe, actually, they were the only company that had a full blind built on them. It's built, it attaches right to my NuCanoe, clips right on, fits perfectly. So that was kind of part of the reason why I went with NuCanoe at the very start.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just using it to get to where I want to be, and then it's almost like layout hunting inside of your canoe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the blind sits over top of you just like your layout blind would be in a field, and you lay there, call your ducks, you're hidden well. I can get to all these spots that no one else can. If I'm taking 2 guys out, we can put all our stuff on there. We can put panel blinds on there and go. There's just so many ways that it's being utilized for the waterfowl side of it. And now even I'm seeing it being, and I know we're not a deer hunting or a turkey hunting group, but I'm starting to see people use it for deer hunting, and I'm looking at it going, man, I want to use it for turkey hunting now too. Like, get to my spot, and because there's a spot that I can't get to because of the river. But yeah, I've been watching the social media, and there's actually guys using the NuCanoes for deer, turkey, as well as the waterfowl.
Wow.
And
you
Everett,
never take it away from a hunter that we're a resourceful bunch and we'll use whatever we have.
Yeah. Now, Everett, the one thing that I always wondered was, when did the design of the actual blind for hunting come into play from NuCanoe? Like, was that right from the get-go? Like, this is what we're going to do? Because it's the only real system that I found where the kayak, canoe, whatever, has a perfect blind that fits it.
It wasn't right away, Dave, but I mean, it was early. I mean, earlier than a lot of other products for us. We had a blind probably before we ever even started putting like bow mount trolling motors on, and some of the stuff that we've gotten known for kind of pioneering. I mean, you're seeing bow mount trolling motors in the kayak fishing tournament scene on every brand that there is now in, most of the United States. But we were absolutely, some of the first ones to really make that a mainstream thing. But I'm pretty sure we had our blind developed before that. So, yeah, I would say before the last production boat, and maybe even before the one we did before that. So it's been out a good 4 or 5 years now. I probably can't say for non-disclosure agreement purposes, but we are working on something that I think will be a very big upgrade in the camo itself. Right now, I was on a
Everett,
very good call with an extremely well-known. Yep.
So everything went garbled.
I'm here, bud.
Everything went garbled as soon as you said non-disclosure. So I just wanted.
It's the NuCanoe's like IT department blocking what he said, right?
So just for the people that are going to be listening, if you could just re-say that about after non-disclosure. I think I know what you were going to say. I just want to get it out so everybody else can hear it.
Sure. Listen, stop me and restart me as many times as we need to. You're not going to bother me. I would rather we get, whatever messaging we need to across clearly. I was on a call a few weeks ago that I've been working on for almost a year in one way or another with a very, very large and very well-known camo company to redesign our blind for us. So
wow, that's exciting.
And even right now,
we've got some steps to take with that, but we're constantly working on all of our products. We're a small company, but even for a small company,
I think we're losing them there.
Yeah, I think we're losing.
I was just going to say, even for a small company, we still try to constantly look at developing, going back and refining, and trying to improve everything that we have.
Yeah, and I can totally and I understand fully when you say that there's still a bunch of
Go
stuff.
ahead, Dave. Sorry.
No.
I'm still here. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not.
Yeah, we can, buddy. You're a little mumbled up, but we can still hear you. And I think we're getting the message, and I'll just kind of relay it. I totally get what you're saying with regards to you've been working on it for a year with this camo company, but there are still things that needs to be ironed out, and that's normal operating procedure when it comes to it. These things don't happen overnight. Like you said, you've been working on it almost a year now, and you'll probably be working on it for another 6 months before this comes together. And but pretty, at the same time, pretty exciting news to hear.
And how much of it is, I don't want to make it come out the wrong way, but like, I made some modifications to my blind. When do you guys see people making a modification that's going to be good, and then people just talking about like, oh, it'd be better if this, and just whining? Like, how do you make that differentiation? If you don't mind me asking.
Sure. And again, guys, if you're not getting any of this, just stop me. I feel like.
Oh. We lost all your audio there, Everett.
What we hear on social media. Any better now? You guys got me?
We can hear you. Yep.
We got it now, yeah.
Maybe try turning off the video if you can.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. I know this is a podcast, so that may help.
We'll put the video on too, but yeah, try that now.
That's way better.
Okay, all right, guys. Sorry about that.
Nope.
Yeah. So basically, we do listen. It is hard sometimes because you get a lot of constructive feedback, but you sometimes get more banter and folks that don't necessarily have a lot of experience, but they're pretty loud in their opinions and things like that. But we're real fortunate. There's a lot of guys that are real serious about hunting and real serious about fishing that we kind of know well enough that when they have something to say or a recommendation to make, those are the guys we go back to in the research and development. So it's not necessarily always the consumer or the customer. A lot of times it's our industry professionals and guys that have a little bit more experience that we turn to for that, Dave.
Yeah. Because I found that like the original blind that you guys had with the big hoop where you were kind of sitting up, and then that evolved, and then now it's the layout blind, and I'm just waiting to see what the next development would be. But it's kind of neat to see the evolution as it goes and how things are just improving and getting better. And even with your kayak and canoe models, like I'm seeing all these improvements. And I have the original model where it's basically a bungee cord that holds on your paddle, and now it's like that hoops and thicker rubber. So it's neat to see how you guys are evolving and designing new things.
Well, I got to tell you too, Dave, the company that I'm talking about that we're going to be partnering with, it looks like we are anyway, they've got really deep resources in other products out there that might help us develop more than, what we've had so far. Because, as a deer hunter, just using that as an example, if I was going to go out and design a ground blind, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's really good products that are out there. And these guys are probably going to help us connect with a lot of innovative resources to help us kind of push waterfowl as well. But I got to go back and touch on one thing because I don't want to skip over it too much. And that is just how multi-purpose these boats are. I mean, there's no surprise, and I don't know if any of you guys deer hunt, but, the biggest, I think, channels on YouTube right now, the hottest ones on YouTube, all of these guys are using NuCanoes in some way. The Hunting Public, Seek One, we have all these guys that have reached out to us that wanted these things because they saw what a great tool it would be to have a light kayak that they could put an outboard motor on, and I got to thank the guys that have been doing it for years, not these new guys. The guys that have been doing it for years brought it to their attention, and then these new guys are kind of putting us on the map. So I'm grateful for it all, but there's a lot of guys that have been using these boats to get serious and get deep for a long, pretty
awesome channel, it would be Parker McDonald and Southern Ground Hunting. He's been doing it for a long time, and that dude can kill some turkeys in this thing, let me tell you. But Seek One Productions is a newer partner of ours, and they're known for killing giant, 190 to 210 inch bucks around the Atlanta area. But Jay Maxwell did some incredible work for us this year on turkeys on both public and private land with the kayak. That was really cool to watch. That's a really good video too. So they're a tool. I would use stands and tree saddles and some of the stuff that you see in hunting as a kind of an illustration. One size doesn't always fit all, but it makes sense to have something in your arsenal that's going to let you do some of the stuff that's really hard to do. I hunt out of a tree saddle now probably 80% of the time, but there's situations where it's better for me to use a lock on or even just hunt off the ground. And I totally get that's probably how it works with ducks too. If I was out on a giant body of water, shooting ducks over a big lake, then it might make sense to be in a floating blind or a big boat or something like that. But when it comes time to kill some woodies in a creek, it only makes sense that you have something that's going to do that well.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, we got a little guy back there.
Yeah.
Cade.
Yeah.
Cade.
Sneaking in.
It's going the wrong way. The beer fridge is the other way.
I get it. That's, I think, Dave, something that we could do, because it only promotes your idea even more. And that is, maybe we should draw some attention to some of these videos and just how much NuCanoe is changing. And it's really, I use the word changing, but it's more of a, hey, here's a product that you probably have not seen, and it will take you to those tight places that you really need to get. So maybe that's something we can do on our end to try and draw a little bit more attention, because Everett, it's great down in and we all know, for us up north of the border, we all know that your in the United States, your population is very hunting is a very popular thing, and hunting is popular in Canada as well. Don't get me wrong, but we don't have the population, and therefore we're not watching those YouTube channels like our friends down south do. So maybe by us starting to add a little bit of spotlight on NuCanoe, it'll only show off more of what your capabilities are.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, man, that's what's great about talking to you guys. I know this is going to make you laugh, but you're probably my first international podcast.
Yes.
I've done
Yes.
I've done a bunch of them, but I've never done one outside the U.S., I don't think. So that's cool. But yeah, we definitely see different strengths in every region, of the world, not just the U.S. And with that comes, I don't want to say weaknesses, but there's just there's differences in every area. I'll say here in the U.S., it's no surprise that we have hunting, especially from kayaks, is a lot more popular in the middle to southern part of the country than it is in the north. That's not surprising at all.
Yep.
But now that we're starting to open people's eyes up to hunting in the spring for turkey and hunting in the fall for whitetails, that's where you start seeing guys that are like, man, I can use this thing year round, even if I do live up north. So it's been really good, man. And one of the good things about having the kayak, just, for starters, let's call a spade a spade. I sold a duck boat in 2000, probably 14 or 15, for somebody else. I just sold it for him, and it was awesome. It was like a Fowler 185 with like a Pro Drive on it. It was a really nice boat. And I remember how fast it sold. It was like 3 days that it was on Craigslist or whatever I sold it on. And the guy drove all the way from Chattanooga with cash, and he overpaid me.
Wow.
Little did I know this guy would go on to buy out my portion of my clothing company that I told you guys about.
What?
I didn't even know, like 2-3 years later, he would end up being the guy that bought me out. He was still in my phone as duck boat buyer when I got that phone call. But what's funny is these waterfowl guys spend a fortune to kill these little birds.
Yeah.
On leases and boats and camo and guns and calls. And this kayak costs less than most of them spend on a gun.
Yeah.
And way less than most of them spend on a boat. And the fact is, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but with rare exception of those epic 1 or 2 day hunts that you get per year, that little kayak will probably put you on them more frequently. Maybe not the numbers, but more often, and you spend a lot less money. So the guys that I know that are kayak hunting for waterfowl, those are the guys that are going out every single week in their kayak once or twice. Even if the conditions aren't perfect, they're going and finding a creek somewhere, or they're hitting the edge of a river in a slough. And it's really cool to watch that and watch them do it, without spending a ton of money.
The thing about waterfowl hunting is it's so gear intensive, unlike any other kind of hunting out there. Me personally, like where I live now, there's no marshes or real lakes that birds use around here, so it wouldn't be that useful for them at. But I mean, where I used to live in Ontario, where Mark and I would hunt a lot, I can think about a dozen different places that we could have used a platform like that. But I think the biggest thing for a waterfowler, especially like myself and these guys, is you never want to miss an opportunity on a hunt. And if something as unique as like a NuCanoe platform, if you don't have that piece of kit to do that little backwater opportunity or whatever, you want that kit. You don't want to miss the opportunity. And I think that's kind of what it kind of appeals to. Like a deer hunter, they might use that 80% of the time, especially like the public land guys. Like you mentioned the hunting public. I watch a lot of their stuff. It's amazing stuff. They use it for turkey, deer. They use it all the time. They're in the boat. But for us, we might use it 10, 15% of the time, but it's irrelevant. It's you use it once and you have that smoke show hunt, you've got your value in it. So to me personally, that's how I operate. I hate not having a piece of kit and there causes me to miss an opportunity. So
yeah. And Ryan, it's not like it's like a $10,000 piece of your kit either.
Right.
We're talking about, a piece that's arguably one of the more affordable, larger items you may have, but it's also real multi-purpose. Dave mentioned earlier that he was using it a lot as kind of an access tool, wouldn't necessarily hunt out of it. Well, a lot of us, myself included, we use the boat as a sled. I mean, I'm not shooting a deer out of my kayak. I'm using it to haul it out. And I know tons of guys that use it to haul their decoys in and their dog. And then wherever they're at, they're using it to fill it up with, what they killed, or they're, loading it up with their gear and their decoys and stuff like that. And they might not even be able to paddle the thing out, but they're using it as a, light and really effective way to transport it. So it's got a lot of uses. As far as propulsion goes, I mean, I would be probably missing something pretty important if we didn't talk about that. But I'll tell you this story. Last spring sometime, I don't know, maybe it was early summer, I went striper fishing in Tennessee, and I was using my Torpedo, which is a German, very, very high performance electric transom mount, and I was trying to keep pace with a air cooled 2.3 Honda. And our cameraman showed up in his Frontier 12. He's actually the cameraman for Seek One now as well. He showed up with a 9-horse Predator. I think it's like the 212 or whatever. long shaft. And I've had that on a 14-foot John boat before, but I had never, ever tried or even thought to try to mount one for one of our kayaks. And I do not advise it. He's nuts. But it works. I mean, the boat can handle all 8-9 horsepower that you got. Even though the shaft is as long as the kayak, which is hilarious to watch. But I guess what I'm getting after is, I mean, having that flat transom and a boat with a good weight capacity gives you a lot of options there too. It's not like you're just out paddling, this Sun Dolphin you bought from your local box store.
It's like that video. I don't know if you guys have seen that video going around where there's a guy in like a little handmade wooden boat, and he's got like a car motor attached as the mud motor, and he's going along, and then all of a sudden he just revs it as high as he can, and the thing is just motoring, and he's tucked down as low as he can, just flying in the thing down the river. That'd be like a 9-horse on this thing, eh, Everett?
Yeah.
It's fast, man. I'm not gonna lie. We probably, and this is not gonna ever make it to video because we can't. I mean, it's rated for 2.5 horsepower, but I do a little bit of I do a little bit of fishing. You guys know that.
Yeah.
And the Seek One guys asked me to take them on my local waters and put them on some big shoal bass, which is kind of similar to a smallmouth, but it's the southern cousin, so to speak. And we had a really good time, and I put them on some good ones. And at one point, Thomas said, "Do you guys want to try letting me tow you, all 3 of you?" And man, once you feel the power of being towed by a motor like that, that's where you really appreciate what it's like to stand in the bow of it with this super long tiller and drive it holding a bunch of camera equipment. I mean, the guy is incredibly talented, but yeah, his name is Thomas Clements, and he's a pretty good bird hunter too. I got to tell you, he's actually been on a really good this week, him and some of his buddies, but he does some great work.
I don't want to say almost. I definitely want to see somebody hauling ass across a lake with a 10 horsepower motor on the back of one of these things.
I will send Dave a video to share with you guys of his brother Will testing it in a pond, and he's waking the edges of this pond. It's pretty awesome.
That's pretty good. Hey, did you guys ever watch this show? It was called the Rocket City Rednecks. It used to come on Discovery Channel. Anyways, bunch of geniuses that lived down in I don't know where it was, down in the southern states anyways. But they were literally geniuses. And on the weekends they would get together and just build stupid shit and try to make it work, right? And that's exactly what I'm picturing when I hear the story of this boat with this NuCanoe with a 9.9 onto it. It's straight out of Rocket City Rednecks. It sounds awesome. I just wanted to go back and touch on what Ryan spoke about, and this having this extra piece of kit so that you don't miss an opportunity. And Everett, one thing that we really focus a lot on this show is we really try to stress the importance of scouting when it comes to trying to find your next hunt. So, and this is what I want to say to the listeners. If you're out and you're scouting one evening and then you find the X where the birds are, and it's in a place where your John boats you can't get to, you can't walk to it, And to have that piece of kit that you don't use all the time, and let's face it, as waterfowl hunters, our garages are full of gear, and we're not walking out into the blind every day with every piece of kit. We have kit for specific hunts. And this is exactly where NuCanoe would come in, is that NuCanoe is needed for a specific hunt. This is the X. I can't walk in there, nor can my 14-foot John boat get in there. All right, NuCanoe, we're calling you up. You're off the bench. It's time for you to go to work. And that's really what we're trying to say here. And Ryan put it so eloquently. It was awesome.
I'm planning to do next year, because both my kids will be allowed to shoot. I'm hoping to take them out and have 2 flints with the blinds on them and use them as layout boats.
Mhm.
Like put a big diver spread all around them and use them as a replacement for a layout, because I'm pretty sure it's going to work well. So I think
that was one thing I wanted to ask you, was I guess the stability, because I've never used one, but the stability in, so let's use Lake Ontario, the Great Lakes, Dave. Like, can the NuCanoe, is it something that you would use on the Great Lakes, or is it more for those small ponds, those water holes that we tend to shoot
Just
on?
look at my profile picture that's probably popping up.
Okay.
Is my profile picture popping up right now?
Oh yeah, it's there.
So that is in the ocean.
Yeah. So Florida.
Yeah, and I mean, we have guys take every model we own after tarpon every year.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to jump in front of you, Dave, but big lakes and ocean are not that different, and I'll be glad to admit that.
Wow.
I have been a bass fisherman on big lakes for years. I used to chase these tournament trails around, and when we talk about swell and waves on a lake, it is not any different than talking about the ocean. The ocean can get worse, obviously. But generally speaking, what you're looking for is a boat that's not going to let you down. You're looking for a boat that's not going to throw you out. A lot of that comes down to seating. And one of the good things about waterfowl, guys, is you guys are already prepared to sit pretty low, pretty deep. And as long as you have a seating configuration that gives you some adjustment, which we have the best adjustment of any manufacturer, because you can slide the boat from bow to stern and up and down, and we've got a lot of options there. As long as you can trim that thing, there is literally not any conditions that you can take a kayak out in that you can't take a boat in. I'd say 80 or 90% of the time.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I hunt mine on Lake Huron.
Okay.
I'll paddle it. I'm not a small guy, and I can have me, my dog, all my decoys, a couple mojos, and I'll paddle it 400 or 500 meters, no problem.
Okay. Wow.
18-kilometer-hour winds. Last Friday was 18-kilometer-hour winds, and I was fine.
Okay.
You got to know. It's just like any time, even if you're in a boat, you got to know your conditions when you go out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's the 2 biggest questions I always get is, how do you do this safely, and how is it for stability and for handling and paddling? Because I don't have the place that I go to, it actually gets to certain points where it's like a couple inches deep, and I have to get out and walk it a little bit, and then I'll get back in it and paddle again because it gets deep again. So I paddle it, right? And I get asked that all the time. But these NuCanoes, they track very, very well. They're very wide and they're super stable. In the summertime, when I'm fishing out of it, I'll actually stand up in it and fish out of it. So the stability in the things are, they're crazy, man. You can stand on the sides of these things. They're a pretty awesome little boat.
Okay. Awesome.
That's the question I was going to ask, is what for Dave, like, what's the stability like when raising up and shooting out of them?
So it's just like being in a layout blind in a field. I know that NuCanoe, see, I have the old style seat where it's like a big boat seat. So I adapted right off the bat, getting one of those Mobarsh Invisiloungers.
Yeah.
And I lay that right down on the bottom of right on the deck, and I sit on that, and I lay down in there, and all you can see is my head, and then I pop out. I made a few little modifications to my blind, like I put magnets in my blind to hold it up together a bit better.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and it just, I like to be fully covered. I don't know. Maybe Mark's rubbing off on me on, trying to have that nice camo going, right? But
yeah.
So I lay right down in it, and I haven't found a time. It's something that you get used to after a couple shots, but once you get used to it, yeah, you're fine. It's just like a layout blind in a field.
The low silhouette is what really, like, you really do have a low silhouette on the water with this thing, eh?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're only 8 inches deep, Everett? I'm just guessing here.
I mean, yeah, about that. Our Frontier. I mean, when I say about that, every boat is different. So the Frontier is a little over 8 inches from the gunnel to the deck because it has what we call a drop down deck. So your rails, your tracks, all that sits higher than the actual deck where your feet, or in y'all's case, your butt is going to go when you're tucked down in there. That's what makes the Frontier probably a little more suited for waterfowl than the other models. The Flint has a really low gunnel, and then the Pursuit is kind of somewhere in between. But what we figured out is that the deeper you can get your center of gravity, not only the more stable you are, but obviously the better you can hide, and that works great for you guys. But I will tell you guys, I took this setup to National Wild Turkey Federation in Nashville this year, and Dave and I actually met there. Me and Mike were running that booth, and now that I see Dave like this, I'm remembering talking to him and remember him being around. We had a blind on it. We had a air-cooled Honda on there, and just seeing, this was in the product showcase. We gave it away at the end of the show, but just seeing the response that people gave it, I called Blake from the show and I said, man, we are just so stupid for not having been here sooner. We've been selling boats to hunters of every species pretty much for 5 years, but we haven't put any time or effort into it at all. And it's about time that we do that. And, for me, it was a novelty to use what I use all the time. But for a lot of guys, they spend more time hunting than I ever spent fishing. And, it's a necessary tool for them. And so we're going to keep pushing the development of it, and it'll be good to get more feedback from waterfowl guys on how we can make it even better.
Dave, I just wanted to ask you one question right quick. So we're talking about the boat, we're talking about the blind on it and being able to use it for our hunting. But let's look at it on a multi-purpose level. So let's say I need to sell my wife on, I'm buying 2 NuCanoes. And I've got the blinds on them, but let's say the blinds are on the 2 NuCanoes. They're sitting in the garage. It's the middle of summer, and my wife says we should go out on the water for a day. How hard is it to take it from the configuration as a hunting boat to getting it so now you and the wife can just go out and have a nice day on the water, just paddling around?
So it clips on. There's 4 spots at it, and it's just like a little eye clip. And you clip onto the 4 spots, and it's almost like a tent pole. You clip it onto the 2 on the one side, you go to the other side, and it bends, and you clip it on the other side, and then it goes on there. It's maybe 30. You know what? I'll make you a little video to show you. It's maybe 30 seconds to go from that to.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's very quick. And then you can also put all kinds of different. If the 2 of you want to go out and have a nice, big, comfortable seat, the track rail system there. It's just quick to put on your new whatever you want to put on there for your seats, and it switches around and you can go down, you know, nice romantic little ride down the river, whatever you want to do, right? So
Awesome.
it goes from fishing to hunting quickly.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen that are listening. You're really not buying this for hunting. You're buying it for your significant other. So use that when it comes time to
tandem. Just use the term tandem.
Yeah.
You know, cock up the 2 seats. If you have kids, you can put them in it too. Blake, one of Blake's favorite shots that he loves to get every time he's in the area is him, his beautiful wife Deanna, all 3 of their kids, and a crab pot and a motor on it on one kayak. He does it all the time.
Whoa.
So when we first had the NuCanoe, we had the trailer. So this is like 5 years ago. And we would actually go, my wife and I would be in the seats. Abby would be at the very front with her like sitting there, and Kobe would be in the middle. And we'd all be fishing off of it because it was like a less than 9 horsepower motor little lake thing that we were on.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd take this and all 4 of us would go out and we'd be fishing together all afternoon. And it was just fun, but it would handle, I think it's rated for 650 pounds, but I'm pretty sure I've pushed that a few times. So
as long as you get your weight distributed right, you know, I mean, that's the thing. You guys have been around the outdoors long enough to have seen some pretty ridiculous things happen. And you know, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's really, you know, with where you put your weight in it. Well, we didn't reinvent any wheels. It's NuCanoe. It's still a traditional hull that, you know, we've formatted to a sit on top design kayak. But, you know, the principles are really the same, which is if you just trim it right, keep your weight distributed well, don't get overconfident, you can do just about anything in these things. I got to say, though, you know, I first of all, I want to apologize because I thought you said his name was Merc, but that is me teasing you about your Canadian accent, Damien. Mark, or as we say down here, Mark.
Yeah.
Been really quiet, but his face keeps popping up on here, and I feel like Mark should ask me a question or, you know, have some contribution here. I feel kind of bad.
Well, Mark's our resident deer hunter, so here you go.
Well, come on.
Deer and turkey.
Yeah, come on.
Where I hunt for deer and turkey, there's not much use for a kayak / canoe. I do have a river on the property, but it's not something that I can use. It's not. It wouldn't make sense to take a kayak or a canoe into it. It's more like a small stream, and when it's low, I can walk across it in hiking boots, that kind of thing. However, yeah, when I do have a fishing kayak from a different company. Mm-hmm. That's
you can say it. It won't hurt my feelings if you say the name.
No, it's half the cost of a NuCanoe, or even more than half. That's probably about half the cost of a NuCanoe, and I don't find it stable enough for me to stand in, and I don't like that. I would prefer I did have something that I could stand in, and something that would be more stable too, or that I wouldn't need to tow a sled behind, like an ice fishing sled. I don't know if you know what ice fishing sleds are down in Georgia, but in Canada they're quite popular.
I was born in New Hampshire, man, and I was born in New Hampshire, and I used to love chasing that flag, man. When that flag would go up, we would just go crazy chasing it across the ice. But yeah.
So it'd be cool to have something that I could use, kind of like Dave's setup, I guess, that I wouldn't have to tow something behind me to take my gear. That to me would be much better, and I'd use it more often, as opposed to now where I got to try and drag along a large. Actually, it's a Cabela's XL ice fishing sled. It's pretty big.
Mm.
I can drag probably 6 bags of corn across a field with it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you know, honestly, Mark, that's the thing is it's kind of like anything that you buy, you find a use for it when you buy it, and then you just kind of keep building on that. I mean, I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. I mean, I went like years without using my kayak for anything hunting related. Now, I had killed a duck out of it, you know, early on, but I had never, ever thought about using it for turkey or deer hunting. And I work for the company and I hunt. It's just kind of how we program our brains to think of, using these things. What I'm saying, Mark, is you might find maybe on that particular property, you don't use it as much. And then you start thinking outside of that property, maybe it's public land or something like that. And you start seeing some areas and that's just how it works. It's a tool. What Ryan talked about, the kit, my wife probably hates just how much crap that I have. And that's true of all of us. It doesn't matter if we're fishing or we're hunting. We're going year round. All of us are. We got something going on year round. And the coolest thing about these for me is that it plugs into something that I'm doing all year.
So, sorry to cut you guys off, but we're kind of getting late in our show here. We tried something new this time where we posted that some questions for people because we knew NuCanoe was coming on, and just generic questions about how to hunt out of a kayak. The one we got from Grand River Fowl was, what's the best way to take your decoys in? So the different ways that we do it and that I've seen it done, I've seen guys actually clip their decoys to the back and drag them along behind them. I don't like it that way just because it adds more drag.
Exactly.
So what I do, I use those really light lifetime decoys without the weights in them, and I'll stack 3 dozen in behind me. The Frontier 12 has a zippered pocket in the back, and if you unzip it, you can actually stack your decoys up in there pretty high, and it works quite well. People who bring in even more than that, they'll actually bring just like you were saying, one of those jet sleds in behind them, and that'll work. The other question we had was safety and gear use in a kayak or canoe for hunting. And this is just generic safety tips again. Check your weather, know your temperatures, know what's going on, wear your life jacket, and just be cognizant. Make sure someone knows where you're going, where you're launching from, where you plan to set up, and how you're planning to get there and back. Like, I know we can get to different spots in these things, but we got to make sure people know. And then the third question is, it was about guns and how to have your gun safely in the boat. So I've seen it different ways. NuCanoe actually has a product there, like it's a gun clip, kind of like the Rhino clips for your ATVs. Some guys will use that. I have mine here. So little eye clip here. Some guys will actually tie a rope from there and tie it onto your kayak itself, and that just makes it so that if you drop your gun into that water, you've got a way to get it back out of that water. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure those were asked.
That's army proofing right there.
Like the mitten strings.
Yeah. So like our mitts, our big mitts in the wintertime, we would tie strings off them so we wouldn't lose them.
So run the string through your jacket and down the other arm.
Yeah. So I guess one thing that I and Everett, you and Dave can talk to this, but when we're talking about hunting from a kayak, and then our listeners here that we're talking about hunting from a kayak, we're not talking about a little tiny hole cut into a kayak and you got to sit into this hole and there's no other open space. This isn't a traditional kayak, right? And that may be like when people are talking about how are they going to get their decoys out there. Listen, there's a lot of room, and this thing can take the weight, provided, like Everett said, you distribute it properly. But this isn't your typical, and I urge everybody that listens to please search them up and check out the product. But yeah, Dave.
I'm going to use the most rudimentary redneck Southern illustration possible, Damon. But if you took a bathtub, and you stuck it inside a bigger bathtub, and then you sealed it all up, you'd have this big air pocket between the small bathtub and the big bathtub. And that is what effectively is a sit on top kayak. Well, the beauty of that is you can take that bathtub and you can turn it on its side and you can flip it upside down and you can turn it back over. And then when you put holes in it that go through but don't actually go into the hole, they drain. You basically create the Boston Whaler of a kayak world, which is thick, very buoyant, very, very easy to use and safe platform. So we do not make what's called a sit-in kayak. We don't make one of those. We make only sit-on-top kayaks. And I use the illustration of a canoe only for the shape. It has nothing to do with the ability to shed water. Canoes don't have holes in them to drain. And they sure as heck get water in them. And that's, a big part of what I wanted to comment on the decoy thing is, the capacity is 650 pounds. And I don't know how big you are, but if you have another 400 pounds of decoys, you're really doing something. So the key is, where do you put it? And I always recommend weight forward. You guys would be surprised how much better these big old fat girls like the Frontier 12 paddle if you put a little bit of weight in the bow. My dad likes to use the illustrations of the fishing boats. They used to put everything all the way at the front. In a lot of scenarios, those fishing boats actually were faster. They turned better because of that little bit of extra weight in the front. And it's the same thing with our kayaks. You actually want to trim forward a little bit with your weight, and you'll find that the boat actually does better. We're designing our boats. Every model we come out with has more and more and more scuppers. And I don't want to let on too much to this chatter about the new model that a lot of people are asking about, but we are trending in the direction of more drainage. And, the reason is so that you can put a bunch of weight up front and it will still shed water really well if you need it to. And that's going to make the boat handle and perform really good. So I don't want to overtalk you guys, but those are just a couple more things I want to mention.
Let's see it. There it is.
And one of the things, talking about scupper plugs, like,
that's awesome.
My dog is a German wire-haired pointer. She has a beard, and when she gets wet, she's just dripping. And if she gets in that kayak with me and she's sitting behind me, she'll actually drip right onto me. Those scupper plugs, when you're in the water, once you've thrown all your decoys out and it's just you and your dog in the boat with your gun, you can pull those scupper plugs out, and that's drainage for the dog's water, so it's not getting you totally soaked. So that was kind of something that was, Another thing that's happening.
One more thing, guys. I know we're running out of time, but I'm a kayak fisherman and a kayak hunter, and I like the use of those kind of vessels. And we've talked a lot about this particular product, but if all you can afford is a $300 thermoformed, let's call it like we see it, a piece of junk, that's all right. Get out there and start using it and figure out how you can use it. Be safe, use a life jacket, be smart. But that's the most important thing, is get out there and actually do it. Eventually you'll find your way back to this boat. I have no doubt about that. But the most important thing is to actually get out there and do it and try it. Because I started a page this year called Kayak Hunter on Facebook, and I started it in August or September. We've got about 1,200 members on it, but we're adding like 10 a day and maybe 20 on some days. And that's completely organic. People that are finding it, the majority of them are actually deer hunters, which is crazy. We need more waterfowl hunters in there. But most of those guys don't have premium kayaks. Most of them just have got something that they bought from Walmart or Dick's or Academy or wherever they could. And I love it because those guys have figured out that they can get out there and get in some place that they couldn't before. And eventually they will upgrade, you know. How many of us went out and our first shotgun we ever bought was like $1,500? None of us. Like
None
nobody.
of us. No.
No, your first shotgun cost like $250. It was a Mossberg 500 or something that, you know, you bought used or whatever. Like that's the fact. Is this is just it's a tool just like everything else. I mean, you know, you go buy a call, you might buy it, you know, for $15 or $10 or something like that. You're not spending $60 on a call when you start. And it's the same thing with the kayak. It's a tool. Get out there, use whatever you can put your hands on, and then you'll start figuring out why eventually you want to, you know, really make it part of how you hunt.
Now, very, very wise words and 100% accurate. We all didn't have $1,000 rigs of decoys and $20,000 boats first when we started, and those high-end guns and all that stuff. So yeah, 100%. It's a process. You start where you can, and then at some point you will end up to where you really, really want to be. Everett, we would be very remiss if we didn't ask you, listen, where are we buying NuCanoe in Canada?
Freedom Kayak and Barrie.
Freedom Kayak and Barrie. Awesome.
They have
we need more dealers in Canada. That's
Absolutely.
just a fact, Amy.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got an outfitter up there, if you've got a shop that, you know, does a decent amount of inventory that has space and has, you know, the capacity, tell them to call us. I mean,
yeah,
our factory's in Wisconsin. It ain't that hard for us to get product up there.
Yeah.
But we really need to delve into the Great North more than we have. And, you know, you can find the closest dealer to you at NuCanoe.com. We have what's called the dealer locator. It's a map. You know, it'll take you right to what your closest dealer is, but we need more up there too. And we're really, really flexible and easy to work with on that. So if you know somebody, tell them to call us.
Absolutely. So again, thank you so much for doing this, Everett. And we have went over time a little bit, and we'll get into into our conclusion in a little bit, but we do still need to give a little bit of attention to the two young hunters that are down on the Mississippi that are still missing. Sending nothing but good prayers and so much love to the families, as I know this got to be extremely, extremely hard, but even more so to hammer on to the point that, listen, make sure somebody knows where you're going and make sure you're being safe as possible. We don't know what the story is, but we're still thinking about the families and these two young hunters that, you know what, they're out chasing their passion, and we are thinking of them, all of us here at Punisher Waterfowl, and I know at NuCanoe as well.
Yeah, man, I'm a big fan of Onyx Hunt. That's something that I use a lot for myself. I'm not plugging them. I don't have any affiliation or anything, but I like them because I can drop pins and send them to my dad and people that I know. But Google Maps or whatever you use, literally every time that I go hunt, because I have a lot of big rivers around me that have public land around them, every time I go hunt, I actually send my wife a pin of where I put in and told her the general direction I'm going, because I figure if nobody else is looking for me, she will be.
Yeah. So much as you try to escape, buddy, they'll still come looking for you. That's for certain. Guys, I'll say my bit now, and then we'll just do a quick round table. But Everett, thanks so much, man. Like I always say it, but I know you're busy. I know you're extremely busy, and to take an hour out of your day away from your family to come sit down and chat with us, it means more to us than you'll ever know. And the fact that your product is one of those products that could really revolutionize how fellas get back to those tight places. And we can't thank you enough for coming on. And we are extremely humbled to be your first international podcast. That's a notch for us right there. And I'll be sure to make sure social media world knows everything about it too. With that, we'll do a quick round table and we'll give the last words to you, Everett. Ryan.
Yeah, Everett, nice to meet you, man. I kind of doing a little bit of research on the phone leading up to this. I was kind of checking the product out, and I really wish I had more of the geography to deploy the product here, but I don't. If this was like 2 years ago, where I used to live, it would definitely be something I'd be interested. But pretty impressive what you guys are pushing out, and I wish you guys all the best. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you, man.
Mark.
Yeah, good to meet you, Everett. I know I didn't get a whole lot in on the show, but I did learn a lot from your our discussion, and I have been thinking over the last couple of years of upgrading kayaks. So I think maybe through Dave, I'll look into setting myself up with NuCanoe, because that's exactly what I'm looking for in a kayak.
Cool. I appreciate it, man. And if you just feel like the most generous Canadian I know and you want to invite me to come up and chase some whitetails with you, we don't have to use kayaks. I just love to hunt, and that's cool with me too.
Hey, I invite a lot of people along to hunt on my deer properties. So if you ever want to come up, yeah, sure, come on.
Yeah,
sounds like the plan, man. I'm in.
Yeah, Dave. Sorry.
Everett, I know we've been talking quite a bit. Thanks for coming on. Anyone in Ontario, from our millions and millions of listeners, if you want to see the capabilities or anything to do with this NuCanoe, or just want to see how it's set up or what it looks like, give me a shout. Reach out to Punisher Waterfowl. I'll be happy to show you. I'll be happy to take you out, let you try it out. And for those asking about the durability of these things, I'll just give you one more story. Early season this year, first weekend of ducks, I took out my boss and a couple buddies, and we're all in my truck. We packed up, and I might not have fastened down my NuCanoe quite well enough inside the boat. And as we're driving, we just get up to highway speed kind of thing. It's an empty road. I live in the middle of nowhere. Just get up to speed, and I look at my rearview mirror, and I see this NuCanoe about 4 feet higher than my boat, and we're still driving forward. And then I see it. I see it hit the road. I see it hit the gravel. I see it hit the ditch, and I go, "Oh!" I just said, "Wow!" And my boss looked at me and goes, "What's wow?" And I says, "Well, we got to turn around." And we turn around. We look. We pull the thing out. It's a bit scratched up. She still floats. She still goes. Lesson learned. Make sure they're super durable, but make sure you tie them down when you properly.
Yeah, awesome.
Gotta give her the old. That's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Last words to you, everybody.
Oh man, I think I've said enough. I do appreciate you guys very much. Thanks for having me on, and check us out at NuCanoe.com.
Awesome. And no better message to say other than what you said. And listen, you don't have to just get out there. Just get out there and do what you love. And I think that's a perfect message to end this episode on, Everett. So thank you very much for that. Everybody, this was the Union as advertised, just a bunch of guys that just love hanging out and chatting, hunting. And we just continually, we continue to bring new companies forward that you may not have heard about. So here's another example of another company that's putting a product out there that's going to get you in on the X, closer to the birds, and doing what you love. Listen, it's our passion, it's our life. So whatever it takes to get us in there, we've got to do it, right? So thank you to Everett for coming on. Thank you to NuCanoe for helping Punisher Waterfowl, helping Dave, and we're all coming together. And I do believe that there's nothing but strong things will come once COVID is over and we get back to normal. Big love, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week. Until then, ciao.